So I'm very, very glad you're here. I'm going to take a sip of my tea. So today what I want to do is help you to understand and frame and contextualize trauma in your life. If you're someone who feels like you might have trauma and you want to understand kind of where to go from here, how to think about it, what to do next, then I'm very excited to share some thoughts with you. So first of all, I want to kind of pop in or just pause and spend a moment just talking about the word trauma. So that's shorthand that I use for emotional trauma. So I'm talking about PTSD. PTSD is something that it gets diagnosed, but it's also something that you can sort of start to feel out whether you have for yourself. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is, it's what remains after you go through something that's so traumatic that it kind of changes you. It leaves something in you, a pain that prevents you from living in the same way that you would have in some way. I want to go back to kind of that traumatic moment to help us understand and frame trauma in our lives better. So if we think back, and you don't need to think back to the specifics of the moment, you don't even need to think back to your moment in particular. And also, there is a form of PTSD called complex PTSD, which is what that means is that you've been through multiple experiences, and those experiences have sort of piled on top of each other, and now you have complex trauma, right? So you have it's not just like if you kind of really heal from this experience, then you're going to be okay. There's all these other experiences that are a part of what has changed you. So you don't need to go back to your own experience, but what I want to do is kind of give you the example of my own, and I'm not going to go into total specifics because that's not useful. It can be, but when we want to understand it better, sometimes we don't want to get stuck in it. So I don't want to get you stuck in it while I'm trying to help you understand it better. So I'm just going to give generalities of my own experience. My trauma is around like hiding parts of myself, right? So my original kind of, I have complex trauma, right? So it happened, there were like many different things that happened over a period of time, this is also very common, I want to add, that I think my hypothesis really is that a lot of us have trauma, and it prevents us from doing certain things, but we are able to live like a semi-normal life, so we don't necessarily notice it, or we blame ourselves for it, and we just try to fix ourselves, but that's part of the problem too. But I do think that a lot of us have trauma, and so normalizing that is really important too. But for me, it was a lot of feeling, in those traumatic moments, those moments that ended up having an impact. There was this feeling, it was a change, right? From how I felt before to how I felt after the trauma happened. So before, I was like just doing whatever. I wasn't thinking very hard about anything. I was just doing whatever. And after the trauma, what changed, and maybe I'll even put it this way, the trauma itself was a moment of separation where I felt separated from other people. Like, not just other people, everyone. Where I felt like I couldn't live the same way as everyone else did because it was too dangerous, because it was, it was an issue of survival. And so my body kind of made that decision for me. It was like, so after the trauma, what happened was, after each moment, this kind of deepened a little, or something traumatic happened to where that separation widened a little bit. And what what the change was afterward, I felt that there was not a way to be just me. I had to hide certain parts of myself because they were bad. And I had to do certain things that weren't necessarily like, it's you know, like being nice, right? So I'm a nice person, I'm a kind person, right? But I learned through this trauma that I have to be nice all the time. That I have to be nice like to everyone I meet as a safety measure. Because if I am not nice to somebody, or I do not smile at them and I just walk right by, or if I do not ask them how they're doing and make them feel special, and I'm just kind of this person, you know, here that's just like doing her own thing, then someone will become mad at me, and then someone will hurt me, and then my life is at risk, right? So as a little kid, like you don't really have that much defense against adults, right? So it's very easy as a child to feel like you need to regulate adults if you are getting your boundaries kind of crossed and if you are being hurt by adults. That's kind of your way through, is like through coping mechanisms like that end up separating you. And it feels like it's separating you from other people, but the reality is it's separating you from your actual self and your ability to just kind of live and just be like, what do I want to do today? Like, what do I care about? What interests me? Oh, hi, like I want to interact with you as myself. I want to talk about things that are interesting to me. You know, you become different. So, drink break. So when we think about that traumatic moment or series of moments, those were moments that changed how we feel like we can act and separated us. Sorry, there's a truck doing stupid things. Separated us from ourselves and our ability to just do as we would, just do stuff, and to feel free. So to live like our best lives as our best selves. Sometimes, you know, we go for years without thinking about trauma or whether or not we have it, right? Because we're able to like do stuff kind of normally. And then you know, there's that day comes when one day you realize you really want something. And most trauma kind of it manifests around relationship, intimate relationship. So you realize like, oh shoot, I want this person, or like I want to become really close to somebody, or like, oh man, I could really see, you know, really becoming close friends, or, you know, it can happen with friendships. It can happen with, you know, you can realize trauma when you realize your relationship with your family is not how you want it to be. And it can definitely happen in romantic relationship for sure. So there's this moment that comes when you're like, oh shoot, like I really want this. And where like the wool kind of gets taken away from in front of your eyes, to where like, I'll give an example. I've dated, you know, in my 20s, I dated several people who, you know, when we broke up, I was like, dang, like, I guess they're just really not emotionally available enough, you know, like this sucks, but I'm going to get over it. And that's because I wasn't in a place where I really wanted or was ready for like intimate relationship. And then all of a sudden I realized that I really wanted that. I had my moment, you know, with someone. Like I really wanted it, and I could not like figure out how the heck to do it. So you hit this moment, this like wall. You basically hit a wall where you're like, I cannot access what I want. Like I cannot build close relationship because something is happening, and that something has to do with me, and something I'm experiencing. And in that moment, it's you kind of don't even understand often like what it is, but and you have to do like a lot of deep reflection work, but what happens is you are unable, your coping mechanisms are coming in. So, you know, loads of your life can be fine and normal. And then this one thing you really want, you're working on, and it's like you can't get there. So that's kind of what trauma feels like. It just feels like a wall. Hi everybody, this is Sunday morning Alisha, who's editing the video, and I just wanted to add that there's another way that you can tell that you might have trauma, even if you're not feeling the wall, like yourself hitting the wall, because it is really, really hard to be aware sometimes that it is us hitting a wall rather than like the other person that we're trying to get close with. So it's really hard to tell sometimes. So the other way that you can start to feel out if you might have trauma is if you feel like deep down, and I mentioned a couple times in this video, you being able to live a life that can seem normal or even feel normal, or I'm like other people, right? But even amid being able to live a functional life, the indicator that you might have trauma is that you feel deep down a separation still between you and everything else, or between you and yourself. You might feel that you don't know yourself, or that there's big pieces of you that you've never met. If you feel that separation, if you feel like no one truly understands you, that's a huge indicator that you might have trauma. And so, you know, I just wanted to give you kind of an intro to everything in this video, you know, the intro to thinking about it in this video. But in future videos, I definitely am going to talk more about, you know, working through trauma, becoming more aware of what is happening in the moment, because it's something that it's literally something that you can problem solve, and it feels so good to work your way through, oh my God, like that is the thought, you know, that is holding me back right there. And that thought actually isn't true, you know, or like, oh my gosh, that's the thing that I was trying to do by protecting myself in this way, and not just being honest with somebody about how I feel or about what I'm thinking. Like, it was for this purpose. And now that I know that, I can start to build the habit of letting it go. So trauma it's a really, really tough challenge, but it is an amazing life-altering challenge, and I look forward to talking to you more about it in future videos. If you have thoughts about this, if parts of it confused you, please comment below so that I can address that in future videos. Thank you for watching.